Well, welcome everyone. Oh, I'm always so happy to gather with everyone here around the fireside. And here we gather, we call in the fire because that fire has that way of bringing us closer in with the spirit of what we seek. And so here, we gather around this virtual fire and through these traditional ways of storytelling and beauty making, dialogue, ritual. We get to stir these remembrances of what it is to be indigenous to Earth. So we get to engage in these traditional ways of learning through these oral traditions. In this fire gathering specifically, we are going to explore, what does it mean to become nature-wise and adopt these indigenous ways of learning from nature instead of about nature. And how do we really come into being in relationship with place? We'll also explore these three core languages of nature and how by knowing them really clues you into the conversations that are occurring all around you and why this is important today. We'll also explore these traditional ways of learning and why it's also important that we begin to weave these traditional ways into our life and our communities and our families, and how these brings us into an understanding of what it means to belong to place and to people, where instead of us stewarding the land, we ask, how can we avail ourselves to be stewarded by the land and the animals? And again, this is an introduction to our upcoming learning trail this summer called Becoming NatureWise. And for those who are curious and participating, we'll share some details at the end of this journey here together. Now, because we have a lot of new people coming into the council, I'm going to just give you guys an idea of how this council flows. I'm just going to introduce myself here, and we're going to give some offerings into this virtual fire by means of bringing our hearts into the space of a poem, and let that poem really sink us into this beautiful knowledge that we are coaxing out of the fire. And then we'll go into a beautiful inspired sharing of what becoming nature-wise is and these languages of nature. Then we're going to open up to be in dialogue and see how this indigenous wisdom is stirring within you, what comes up for you, and just have that soulful dialogue with community. And then I'll share further details for anyone who's curious about joining us this summer. Now, if you are new to me, my name is Chi, which is short for Chivito Koa, translates as little goat crow. And for nearly 20 years now, I've been facilitating retreats, providing nature-based mentoring, and apprenticing myself directly to the land and nature. In these 20 years, I've been really focused in on apprenticing to these ancestral indigenous ways with elders and these esteemed teachers of various traditions who've not only given me their blessings to share, but were quite emphatic. It's my duty to pass on what I learn, so others may also remember themselves home. So they reveal how we are all part of nature. We are all an extension of the earth's dreamings. And hence we all have access to these sacred ways of belonging. And in these years of applying this, I've been a wilderness guide for at-risk youth, where they spend over 100 days in the wilderness using primitive methods, guiding you through these rites of passage out in the Colorado Rockies, the back countries of Utah, and here in the Pacific Northwest. And in this time, I've been leading wilderness rites of passage for both youth and adults, facilitating vision quest, wilderness shadow work, nature skills training, and so on. And I now facilitate what is Tree of Totems, which is helping restore these traditional ways of learning through games, storytelling, bringing the elders around the fire, having these experiences where we have a sense of aliveness and connection with one another, with the land, and especially with that which we seek. And so we strive to restore this village culture of being a nature-based community. And it is so soul nourishing. Now, in this fire gathering, you're going to experience some of these traditional ways in which we share on this learning trail of becoming NatureWise. And the way we begin is by giving offerings into the fire and speaking prayers and songs so we may call the spirit of the knowledge that we seek. And the reason we do this is because each of the elders and these esteemed teachers of the many traditions I've been so blessed to learn with have instructed me, each in their own way, how what we seek is also seeking us. And when we approach it with reverence, with beauty making, then what we seek may feel our reverence and greet us in a sacred way. So instead of merely learning information, you have an experience of remembering that which is woven within our being. See, just like salmon who have been cut off from their ancestral birthing grounds due to dams for generations, when that new generation comes and those dams are removed, that new generation, they can remember themselves home, even though they themselves have never been there. See, it said that we are all part of the old stories. Whether you know the stories or not, the old stories know about us. And when we come into these traditional ways of gathering around the fire, coming in the story and beauty making, we stir these remembrances that are interwoven within our bones. And in that we experience a sense of coming home. So let's take a moment and ground in. We're going to give some offerings into this virtual fire through the form of beauty making, through our words, a poem. And in this poem, it really encapsulates the essence of becoming NatureWise and what this journey may invite you into. So let's take a moment and just really arrive into a place of presence. For presence is that which is the doorway into this knowledge, this connection with nature. And ask, how fully present are you willing to be with your life right now, with this path that you are curious of deepening into? And feel into these words. These words come from a poem called Attuned to the Forest. As I walk amongst the forest, the robins tell me where Howl is hiding. As I follow fresh tracks in the soft duff of the forest floor, I snack on roots of licorice fern, savoring their sweet taste. They are adorning the moss clinging to the maple trees I walk past. Suddenly, my senses alert me of the bitter sweet smells of plants freshly broken. I look down to see the fiddlehead tops of the sword ferns have been bitten off. Tracks and scat leave clues. Deer is nearby, hidden from view, watching me. But the chickadees speak and tell me her location. It's been a long day, and my throat asks for water. I see down the hill where the cottonwood trees dwell. Their village is always close to water. I go there and find a stream flowing at their rooted feet. I give my offerings to water. I speak my prayers. I offer my gratitude and invite the mountain's waters to enter me, to become the waters of my body. The day is now late, and as the sun sets, I'm reminded how I am the younger relative of the sun, of the trees, of mountain, of deer, and the younger relatives of all nature's living things. I give a deep bow, I give thanks, for all this day has offered me to remember myself home. I give thanks. Allow those words to really enter and see, what did those words stir within you? What imagery captured you? Becoming NatureWise is what we call a traditional learning trail. It is a path you walk. And as you walk, you gain the experience of the knowledge. You gain the hidden knowledge and gain what we call these unteachable learnings that will only ever be known to you in the mountain, to you in Chickadee, that will only become available to you by walking the traditional path, spending time on the land, listening. In other words, it's a path of cultivating relationship and being in conversation with what you seek. It's allowing these conversations of nature to change you. What we find is that many field guides and modern approaches to nature are focused on learning about nature instead of from nature. They break down plants into scientific classifications and birds and animals into categories with lists of information. And when we separate ourselves from them by learning about them from a distance, we deprive ourselves of the holy relationships we have access to. We also deny the nobility and sovereignty of the plants, birds, and animals, of their families and their communities that they're a part of, happening all around us. And in Indigenous mind, however, we have a more humble approach. We look for relationships and how everything fits together. We adopt a sense where the younger relatives of the plants, birds, and animals. And we position ourselves to learn from them. I had a dear mentor of mine, Ben, a Hopi elder, who I met down in Page, Arizona, along Lake Powell. And he deeply impacted me with how he consistently modeled this humble way of being a student of the land. And he called these the original instructions given to us by Creator. My teachers in India call these the original understandings. And I hear the Aborigine of Australia call these the original songlines. And so these are universal understandings to all those who live close with the earth. And each of these share that our task is to return to nature where we have the experience of remembering. And when we do venture out into nature with these indigenous approach, with this indigenous of mind and heart, we experience a way of apprenticing ourselves directly to the land and its inhabitants that weaves us within its tapestry of togetherness. And each time we go out, we do have a sense of remembering ourselves home. It is said for you to truly learn something, you want to know the language it speaks. If you go to Spain without knowing the language, you'll be able to see the sights, but much will be missed. You won't really be able to get into that authentic depths and expressions of that Spanish culture. You'll remain a tourist engaged on that superficial level, and that's all good if you're on vacation. But how many of us are a tourist in our own environment without even knowing it? So to learn from nature, it's a way that weaves you back into sacred belonging and its hidden rememberings.
And you want to learn these languages, this etiquette, these cultural ways of relating. And you'll learn these on this learning trail becoming NatureWise. You will learn the core nature skills and awarenesses. You'll heighten your senses and know what to listen for, what to look for, how to see through the eyes of connection and relationships. You learn the basic arts of the scout. A scout is a French word which actually means knowing how to listen. Knowing how to listen. And to know how to listen is to know the languages of nature. And the 3 core languages that we'll be exploring is bird language, the language of the plants, and animal sign language. And I'll share what these entail shortly. And by knowing them, suddenly a veil is lifted from your eyes and you become aware how you are never not in nature. That there's complex social structures, family dynamics, courting and grieving rituals happening all around you every day. And so in this, you become included in the conversations, included within this greater thriving community that most humans are oblivious of. And one of the core premises we're exploring as you learn these core nature skills is, what does it mean to belong to place? What does it mean to be indigenous to Earth? For example, consider a time you have felt a sense of belonging somewhere, such as a hometown. And it's likely you knew the ins and the outs of the streets, the different cafes, had a favorite farmer's market, and so on. And within these, it's likely you knew the people you encountered on a regular basis, just as they knew you. And you had a sense of familiarity with each other.
Well, imagine having that same sense of familiarity and welcoming and knowing of the land you live within and its inhabitants of place. Imagine knowing the birds and the plants and the animals, that you were familiar with their routines and relationships with each other. Imagine you could sense they were familiar with you and they actually included you in their village. It is such a magical, heart-opening experience when the wild includes you as part of their village. And they recognize you because you become aware and you know that etiquette of how to be in the conversation. See, what we're about to do here with becoming NatureWise is we're going to enter a way of apprenticing to nature that the Aboriginal call wild land dreaming, where you go out on the land and connect in so the animals and the birds, the plants, the tracks, even the weather can speak directly with you. They can dream through you the remembrances of our belonging. And it's a way of learning these traditional stories of the land, learning the traditional stories of place, of the mountain, of the plants, of the animals, and how they weave you into the deeper meaning of what it means to be part of that land. And so these languages, as we mentioned, one of those languages is bird language. Bird language is probably one of the most ancient languages that was spoken and understood because our survival depended on being able to know the languages of the birds. And so you will learn this bird language and how the birds are narrating what is happening in your environment, right, through their behavior, the types of songs or sounds that they make, their body language, their flight pattern. You'll be able to predict weather, be able to identify exactly where a predator might be, whether that is hawk or a house cat, or if there's an intruder coming into your neighborhood. When you are tuned in to this language of the birds, suddenly you become informed with everything that is happening around you. You will also learn plant language and gain knowledge of the plants of your area along with their medicinal uses. Gain some foraging skills and learn some of these traditional stories of the plants that reveal their relationship with the people with ritual, with the animals in place. And you also learn the basics of tracking and reading animal signs. Learning to read the stories the tracks and signs tell and how they clue you into this greater stories and these relationships that are at play. They reveal the routines, the rituals, the lifestyles of our animal relatives. And when you become clued in with animal sign, even in your backyard, you'll start to notice that there is a lot more activity than you could ever imagine. And you'll start to see how that activity is in relationship with perhaps what plants are now blossoming or which ones are about to. You'll see that animal activity in relationship to the sounds of the birds or to the weather. And suddenly, where before all you experienced maybe was your backyard or the wall of green of the forest, suddenly it becomes four-dimensional. It becomes alive in this living story that is playing out. And once you become aware, you become a part of it. All right. So by learning these languages, what you're doing is you are tuning yourself to these greater relationships and all the things happening around you every moment of the day that most humans are oblivious to. Now, what this course, Learning, Becoming NatureWise, what it is not a technical study about plants or birds or animals, right? You will learn modern colonized forms of plant classification so you can effectively and easily use the field guides that are out there. But we're not here to learn about nature from a distance, right? There's no beauty making in that. There's no real relationship. But what we will do is share how to identify the plants of your area. We'll open up the treasure chest of these traditional stories of these plants, and through storytelling, reveal these indigenous wisdom, like medicines, rituals, their uses. We're going to invite you to go out onto the land and greet the plants and utilize this indigenous etiquette to spend time with them, to build relationship and familiarity with the plants and animals and birds of place and allow them to gain a familiarity with you. And while you're out there on the land, you'll hone in your bird and squirrel language skills. You know, what are they saying is happening around you? You'll come across tracks and scat and animal signs while foraging for the plants. And here you'll learn how to pull the threads of their mystery, how to ask the right questions, discover what story do all these signs tell. How do these tracks perhaps relate to the current behavior of the birds or relate to the plants that you're greeting that day? And then we return to the virtual fireside, just like we are here, where we get to pool our findings, share our stories of the new relationships and what we experienced in applying these languages of nature, utilizing your new sensory skills. And this is what we call that traditional collaborative form of learning, where instead of this being a pursuit, a competitive pursuit of knowledge or an adversarial pursuit, or trying to attain something and hold knowledge as power, we get to adopt this indigenous mind of humbling ourselves to listen into each other's story, to be in counsel, to learn from each other and catch each other's stories and have that experience of others catching our story and our experiences. It is such a powerful, powerful experience to be in a learning community like this. And so through these different lenses, both modern and ancestral, you'll gain, these languages and these heightened awarenesses of being part of nature rather than that oblivious tourist just passing through. Now you can likely sense how this learning trail, Becoming NatureWise, is inviting you into an old way of learning and experiencing nature. And when you're out in nature, you discover that You are surrounded by story. The earth is breathing story. And through myth and stories, you learn to pay attention to the little things, to the almost invisible details. You learn to turn your head, to smell the air, to listen with dear ears, to listen with heightened alertness. And when you learn to listen in this way, you are now listening through your heart. You're listening through connection. And when you listen through your heart, you avail yourself to the 10,000 trembling secrets that are hidden in plain view all around you, that is guiding us all back to remembering ourselves home as part of this thriving village of earth. It is such a yummy, yummy experience. And right there encapsulates what this journey is, the spirit of becoming NatureWise, and what you'll learn and experience on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share the quick details of what the journey entails, and then I want to just open this up so we can be in dialogue together and see what did this knowledge and this sharing stir within you, and answer any questions that you may have. So the course details are pretty simple. We begin Thursday, May 27th. Twice a month, we have a virtual council fire on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we pool our experiences and learnings, we get mentoring, and we dive into some new inspired content. And during this journey, you'll have access to our online platform that has all the videos, has charts and articles that you can access again and again, so you can go deeper into this knowledge-based part of the course. And in this, we're going to have a lot of the traditional stories and the techniques, the sacred etiquette, so you can tap back into and experience. And part of this forum is, or this platform, there's a forum where you can share your videos or your pictures, and pictures of the plants and the tracks that you find. Share your stories of listening in to the conversations. Ask any questions that you have. And it's also a place you get to receive mentoring. So we'll have others who are a part of this, and some elders a part of our journey will be able to come in and be that support for you. Between the council fires, we're going to invite you to go out and spend time with the land. We call this having earth time. We'll offer you like treasure hunts and games to get out in nature to hone in your skill. Through our platform, we'll be able to send out notifications during the day to enhance your senses of your environment wherever you are, and to tune in. What are the stories that are being played? We'll give you all these little inside hints of what to look for. So throughout every day, you are able to attune your awarenesses and senses to nature communicating with you. I love it. And throughout the course, in this journey, you'll be able to experience some traditional mentoring. And we have some skilled mentors who've just gone through some training who'll be a part of this journey. You also have me and some elders, and you'll be able to schedule a phone session at any time and experience what we call this coyote mentoring, which is a traditional way of guiding you and helping to pull out your stories and really help you attune yourself to the landscape that you are apprenticing to. And the basics is, so we start May 27th and roll by May 23rd. The normal cost is $1,600. But now due to COVID and the uncertainty of quarantine and all the things going on in the world, we just shut this down to $800, 50% off. Hopefully that give everyone as much accessibility to this as possible. We all need nature time. And when we go out into nature, we experience this sense of connection, a greater sense of resiliency. And so we need this. So it's only $800 right now. There are some payment plans available, perhaps some scholarships. And if you are interested, just email me at learning@treeoftotems.com. share why it resonates with you. And then we'll schedule a 15-minute phone interview just to connect in with your own intentions, answer any questions you have, and just really assess to make sure this is the right journey for you. We are very deliberate with who we invite into these journeys to have an integrity of that energy that we bring in, that we're all learning from each other and have that right heart of coming into the circle. And really that's it. It's a beautiful journey. So I'm going to take this off so we can now come into dialogue and really share into, I'm really curious to hear, like, what in this sharing, what did it stir inside of you? Or what questions are coming up for you? This is that time to also receive some of that mentoring and be in dialogue. And so all you need to do is you could just take yourself off mute and begin to ask your questions or share. And one thing I ask is, so you can bring your heart and spirit into the circle as giving offerings, is just share something really quick that you have gratitude for today. And just share your name and where you are calling in from. And I leave the circle now open to you. Oh.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Sherry.
Hi. Oh, my name is Sherry Davis. I live here in Bonnie Lake, Washington. I've been working with Chivito. Oh, gratitude. Much gratitude to be here on the call tonight. I've worked with Chivito for over 2 years now doing these programs. I graduated from becoming NatureWise last year. And I have to say that I already had what I thought was a deep connection with nature, but going through this program really deepened that connection and took it to another level. And one of the things that I really appreciated about the program is that you don't have to journey out to the mountains in order to participate and to become more connected to your immediate environment. I know at the time I was going through this program, we were on lockdown and we really couldn't go out much. I really developed an understanding of the nature in my own backyard or at my own park. I know that one of the learning trails that we experienced was learning about the animal tracks and following, the animal paths through nature. And I have to say now, I'm an avid hiker, but my favorite trails are no longer the ones that the people are on. I love to hike the animal trails. And I have a whole new relationship with nature. It's on such a deep level now. I value that connection, and I value the understanding that I learned through Chivito's class. It's really helped me to overcome fears about being out in the backcountry alone, to understand when you're hearing an animal, it could be warning you about another. About the relationships of the animals in the forest and our own relationship to our environment. It's just, I can't recommend the program enough. And I'll probably just go through it again because I always learn something new. And I just wanted to share just what wonderful, valuable experiences I've gained through this program. So, thank you.
Thank you for that share, Sherry. Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to journeying with you again, deepen more into the stories and the mythic lens this time. I'm like, yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, cool. Right. What else might have got stirred up for you guys as we were filling into this, more of this indigenous wisdom and learnings, connecting in with nature?
do we say?
Oh, Uta, it's good to see you're here. Oh,
Yeah, thank you. I will share if you want me to.
Yes.
oh, it's up to you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I am another graduate, so to speak.
Oh, that's right.
My first encounter with Shivita was becoming NatureWise. And not that I've done any mentoring. I mean, I've done mentorings before, all wilderness school. And Shivita has a totally different path. I mean, it's very unique. And I've been connecting. I've actually, for the first time ever, heard a plant talk to me. And so it blew my mind, right? I was like, wait a moment. So that was really great. And it has opened my awareness to a different level of connection. I think, Sherry, you shared that too. So it's so deep now. I'm out in nature and I am connected. It doesn't have to be, I have to do a certain ritual to be out there. No, I am now connected. So that is a really profound experience to carry with me and also to share.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can hear
I
Masha.
want to share that.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Uta.
Mhm.
Yum. Yeah. I really had fun with you on the journey because you have that biologist, you have more that science background. So it was really fun to bridge those worlds.
There you go. Yeah, that's why it blew my mind that a plant for me, like talked to me. That actually I was sitting in front of the plant, ready to draw it, and it immediately said, "Back off! I need space." Okay, I just jumped back, literally, and sat there, and I was like, everything was fine. It didn't get hurt. Everything was still there.
Yes.
The connection got deeper. Yeah, thank you.
Oh.
The analytical mind literally is taking a back seat. You know, I have that knowledge, and it's not that important part. It's literally the heart connection with plants, with animals, with the space, with humans. It's yeah, it's very deep.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Uta.
You're welcome.
Mm. 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 I think one of my favorite experiences with applying this knowledge is a relationship I had with some osprey. And we had a retreat center up in Leavenworth along the Wenatchee River. And we had a nest of osprey that they came every year. And I got to be there for 3.5 years. And my cottage was right on the river. And it was right at eye level with where this osprey would perch, right across from where I was meditating. And so we spent a lot of time together in the mornings, the evenings. We knew our routines, and I often bobble my head, and I noticed the osprey started to bobble its head with me. And what was really special was one time I was down by the river and it was really loud, and I started to hear it give the alarm call. And I looked up and I saw its body positioning, and I looked behind me, and there was this man who was climbing up through the bushes behind me. He had fallen off his raft and was trying to find a way back to the road. But what's beautiful was that the osprey was actually warning me of an intruder. It was including me as part of the village. And this osprey would often take like half-eaten salmon, and I'd be out on this picnic table and would drop it right where I was eating. It was like it was gifting me these offerings. And we got to witness the newborns fly each year. And yeah, it's a really special treat when you greet nature as a relationship. What can happen? Yeah. Mm. Great. So I'm curious who else would like to connect in. Do certain things get stirred inside of you in these sharings? Or do you have questions? Shy group this evening.
I'll go. I'm Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Central Oregon, outside of Bend.
Okay, great.
And yeah, today I'm really grateful because I got to drive up from the valley along the Sandiam, and I got to drive the Sandiam River, and I got to drive through part that was not burnt. We do a fair amount of back and forth, and it's fairly heartrending still to be driving along the burnt areas. So I was really grateful to be on part that is still very green and healthy. And also gratitude for the forest as she regenerates. It is amazing. So I just want to say thank you for sharing the teachings today. I think for me, the piece that I come back to and that you stirred up again is this communion, that we are nature. We are not separate, right? We are that. We are that which we long to connect with, which I think is so interesting as modern humans. We've forgotten that we are nature. So thank you for sort of the beautiful lessons and the way you've encapsulated it, and just really pleased to be here with these beautiful people tonight as we're all sort of sharing this space.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for bringing your voice and your heart into the circle, Michelle. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I love your backdrop too.
Yeah, can't miss the redwoods. I'm from the redwoods, so I brought them with me.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty extraordinary. Thank you.
Oh, I'd like to say something from Australia. Hi.
Hello.
I really relate with you driving through burnt country because I feel a bit teary now because we're very burnt here, and we burnt a year ago badly. And the most amazing thing is it's so green, and we're never green in autumn usually here, or sort of dried out from summer, and it's the greenest. And I'm 62, so it's the greenest I think I've ever seen it. And it's so beautiful. There's new things coming through, and it's very battle scarred, and there's a lot of sad stories that sort of got lost to COVID. And there's still so much to do here. But I really, I've often thought of California as our sister area to East Gippsland, and because we burn along with a part of Greece I often go to as well. And I think I'm having a problem with fire, really. But I really relate to what you're saying, and thank you for bringing the redwoods. It's lovely. And thank you. It's the first time I've been online with the group. I've been sort of in the background for the last year and just, tapping in and making comments, but I really appreciate that I can do that. And I still have a course with Sandra Ingerman that I am yet to finish. Just one of the struggles to go. I live in the country and surrounded by bush, and sometimes our lives are too fast. I want to cry again, in the sense that I do find it hard to slow down. And the best way for me is I'm up very early in the mornings photographing, and it's the most I feel true to myself and still in myself. And I need more of that. And today you just all remind me. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I feel I'm grieving with you with the fires and even not being able to grieve with like COVID and everything else that's been around. And
yes.
Here in the Northwest, we've had so many fires these years too. And it's just, so my heart goes there, and I love that you shared that grief with us. I think that's one of the best offerings to bring into the circle. So.
And the beauty of it is, you can't go to the regrowth straight away. We must always feel the dark in order to transform. But nature shows, so it just, every time I go into a very dark place in my own journey, and my friends or whatever remind me that there is a cycle in it all. And it's never easy when you're down in the dark or when you're burning in the forest, but it does change. It really does. And I think that's the greatest gift we have, is to look to the forest and the rebirth of the animals as well. So good luck in California.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Let's see. Great. Tracy. Okay. Great. Now, one of the key components of this training is, we call these invisible learnings, right? These unteachable learnings. And as part of what we call coyote mentoring, where so much is being shared through the stories and the etiquette and being out there and having these experiences. There are just things you just can't be taught. But by coming into the heart and that right mindset, suddenly this other knowledge becomes available to you. And one of the things that we are doing in this is basically what we call decolonization. And we realize how much we've been colonized into a very transactional mindset that keeps us separate. When we try to look at nature as something separate from ourselves, like, oh, I'm going to go harvest some plants. Like we're going out there to get something, rather than going out and like, what's the right etiquette to greet these plants and say, hey, I see you and your family. I see, the great cedars who are holding you in their canopy. I see the snows that come down and feed you. I see all of life and how they are all contributing to your medicine, and speak in a way that says, I would like to harvest you so that your medicine can become part of my body and can become part of the healing of others. And it's such a whole different relationship and experience when we start coming into this decolonized way of being a part and an extension of nature. And another aspect I like to really tap into here is the importance of entering this mythic mind, where these oral traditions have all been shared through story. And these traditional stories of plants and lands, no matter where you're at, the mountains, they all contain that hidden knowledge, those unteachable learnings that when you really feel into that story and realize, it's not just a fairy tale, but this is a story to connect me in with place, or how this mountain connects me with the river that connects me in, with the foxglove or the Oregon grape or what have you. So it brings us all into this greater sense of meaning. And those origin stories, cross culture, is what is known to bring us into that deep sense of belonging. And when we have a sense of belonging with land and place that we can honor, that we are actually an extension of the earth's dreaming, we develop a whole new sense of sovereignty with who we are and the gifts we have to bring into the world. And we experience a deeper sense of resiliency because we have a connection that can never be broken. And this all experiences in that sense of the decolonization and remembering how we are to be in relationship. If we look at humans, we're the only species on this entire planet that has isolated ourselves and separated ourselves. And all of nature is thriving around us. Every single city is surrounded by forest and trees, and we are on this grid system, totally oblivious to it. But nature isn't. Nature still is happening. And when we can remember that, remember when we're driving even through the city, that we're actually driving through ecosystems. There's just so much to be seen, and it really fleshes out that sense of connection. It's beautiful. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'd like to just leave it open one more opportunity to see if anyone has any questions or wants to share in anything before we bring this council to a close.
I'd like to speak into the circle. I've been in transit. Hello, brother. I've been in transit and just arriving home here, and I didn't want to miss this because it's always so potent. And I do have to say I'm another one who's been through NatureWise, becoming NatureWise. I have been through Awakening the Sage, and I'm currently in shadow guide training, and I'm a diehard. It's like the medicine is so potent and so delicious. And I have been somebody who has traveled a lot, extensively in the wilderness. And coming in this alignment with this journey with Chavito has brought me into a deep relational aspect with that nature, with the nature, with the journey, with the plants, the animals, and was something that was missing. I felt I was always deeply connected. And then I learned that there was a whole new layer of connecting in deeply, coming into a relational aspect in a conversation with the birds, with the plants, with the atmosphere,
Oh,
with the energy, with the moisture on my skin, what's coming in next in the weather front. And so this has been powerful for me, moving away from the adversarial relationship that we have, that we're so much, we've been grown on, or the transactional relationship. What will I get from this? Or what will, So I just want to speak into that. And I'd also, that's in a celebration. And I'd like to, and gratitude, I'll just call that my gratitude right now too.
oh.
But I'm just curious. I'd like to ask you, Chavito, just to elaborate on sacred etiquette, because that is something that I just cannot get enough of.
Yeah, it's pretty juicy, isn't it? Yeah. The way I share it, like sacred etiquette is what is the right way to be in relationship. And, when we think about going out, imagine you're at your home and someone comes into your house. They don't knock on the door. They just come in and you say hi and they just ignore you. And then they go over to your refrigerator and they raid your refrigerator. They pop open your beer. They go sit in your living room. You're like, hi, hello. And they just ignore you and have a full-on conversation that might be even loud. And they might even say, oh, cool, look at this knickknack. I'm going to take it with me. And then they just take it. Then they just leave. They don't even talk to you. They just leave. Right? That'd be like pretty audacious, like really rude, right? And so when we think about how do most of us enter nature, we often enter in that same way. We just kind of barge right in. We are talking loudly. We don't say hello. We don't say, hello, I am Chivito Ko, little goat crow, and I'm come here to be in relationship with you, to learn and be in conversation, or to be with my friend, that in your beautiful presence, we may remember something. And say, may I even come in? And then we come in and go into the forest, and maybe you see some of those licorice fern. And you're like, ooh, I want to snack on the licorice fern. That sounds yummy. Or the salmonberry, right? Or any of the amazing, delicious food, like chop down on some nettle, right? We're like, we just kind of go for it. But when we have this sacred etiquette of how do we greet the forest and even ask for permission to enter, right? How do we move through the forest where we're not ignoring all the different communities and relatives, but how do we be a good guest? And when we are greeting the different plants, how do we ask their permission and be in relationship with them and recognize, well, if we take of these plants, what impact is it going to have on that land? Who's going to miss them, right? How are they going to serve us? And so there's this beautiful etiquette that brings us into this amazing relationship with everything. And it's really incredible because most people just experience a tree as a tree. And yeah, you can hug a tree. And some people know that they can't talk to trees. And some know that trees will talk to them. And a lot of people aren't aware of this. And same with the plants. But when we really avail ourselves, we are rejoining the conversations. There's been an ancient conversation going on between the river and the elk, between the clouds and the cedar trees and the mountain. And we can each tap into that if we know that etiquette. And it's, a lot of people think of that as like, oh, that's a lot of tree huggers kind of stuff, right? But when you really practice it, you really experience how receptive everything is. And part of the journey is like we really see how intelligent nature is, like how the trees, they will actually redirect nutrients to other trees that need help. The trees will leave off different scents if there's a predator in the area and let the other trees know. other plants will actually travel through the landscapes to help restore those landscapes and help restore the soils so that other plants can eventually come and grow into those soils. And those plants are also just in travel to prepare for the seeders to finally come back. And so there is this amazing intelligence of nature working together where we just see it's like, oh, it's just a tree. It's like, yeah, well, what is that tree contributing? And that tree or that plant is there, right? What does it indicate that has just occurred? Like foxglove, for example, normally grows in really disturbed areas, which means it's bringing certain medicine there. Same with alder trees. It's bringing back nitrogen back to the soil to re-heal that soil so other things can grow. And so there is that scientific element of recognizing the intelligence of the plants that are working together. Yeah. So, cool.
I love that. I love that. I'm a herbalist in Australia.
Oh, great.
Medical herbalist, and I'm a medical astrologer. And the plants and planets really talk. And I don't know what to say. One of the things that disturbs me at the moment in our lives, and has for a long time as a practitioner in especially the plant medicine, is this fabulous understanding that's coming that plants are our medicine, and the fear that it'll just be taken again, you know. Yeah. And down here, we've had the fear for echinacea for many, many years. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful Native American plant that everyone's taking. They ring me up, can I have echinacea? Can I have echinacea? And I, you know, some people charge $100 to make it valuable, but I would rather not give it and give relationship with the plant like you're talking. And people don't understand how alive these medicines are, and how in relationship with our body, when you give it, it knows to go, you know, it goes all over your blood, but it knows to go and fix right there at the knee where you've got the infection, you know, and it knew that, not me, not it in relationship with your blood, which is alive, is directing that. And the lack of respect or understanding of that is a worry for the resources that aren't just resources in the capitalistic, you know, mind. They are our cousins, you know, they're our sister. Nettle is my sister, you know. And I just wish, and I hope you can teach all over the world, because I really wish we get this, you know. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, you know, for walking like this.
Oh.
Or crawling.
A little bit of both, yeah. Yeah. There's hope, you know. This kind of thing is a beautiful, beautiful. The last thing in Pandora's box is hope, and we've all got it, you know. Oh. So hearing this is just a nice little injection for the vital force, really. Absolutely. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, when we look to how, like, most of my training comes from Ayurvedic medicine and living in India for many years. And the way they learned, like, Ayurveda is famous for their ability to combine like 500 herbs into a single formula, right? It's so complex. And the way Ayurveda came into being was the bunch of like yogis went up to the mountain and they meditated for a long time. And it was through the dreaming that the plants came available to them, and they began to speak to them. They shared their language on how to receive from the plants directly, how to utilize them to be of service to the people. And when we look at indigenous cultures worldwide, that's how their plant knowledge, which is phenomenal, right? It all came from the dreaming, the speaking of the plants and having this etiquette. And so there's so much behind it.
I think, you know, this is what Carl Jung would say is, you know, we no longer hear the roar of Zeus in thunder. We no longer hear the voice of the plant. And you know, it's because we don't hear. It's not because they're not talking. It's because we can't hear them, you know. I'm sure they're screaming at the moment a little bit, but I'm sure they wouldn't chastise either. You know, they're not sort of sick like the human psyche. And I just love how Jung worded all that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well said. I'm glad you brought that in. Yum, yum, yum. Cool. All right. Well, just leave it open for any last questions or comments.
There's a question in the chat box from Crystal.
Oh. You can say it out loud. You can also say it within. A lot of this language isn't like our human language is so limited. I call our English language a slave language because it often puts us into opposites. It's either this way or it's that way. And so when we come into the spirit of our heart, or you even imagine it through vision, like imagery, that communication can come across. So her question, or at least the first question is, does it need to be said out loud to introduce yourself to the forest? And so you don't need to necessarily speak it out loud. You can be in your heart and just feel it and bring that intention out, and the forest will feel that. It's kind of like dogs and cats, right? They know when you're in pain, right? They don't ask, say, hey, what's up? They're like, are you okay? They just know. They just come up and they start cuddling with you. And like us humans, we're so blind. We only rely on our words for communication, even though most communication, what is it? Our language is only 2% of our communication, right? Or 7%. The rest is body language and intonation, presence, energy, all these other things. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah, the etiquette does not need to be spoken out loud. Thank you, Don. You know, the way you were sitting there and you had those pillows there, I thought you were like just a freezed frame, like that wasn't actually you. But I kept thinking, I'm like, I think she just blinked. Is she real? Or is that a picture? I love it. Same with Kate. And then I realized I think she's in her car. She starts waving to people. I love it. All right. Cool. Well, one last call for any questions or any other comments. All right.
Could I ask you, do you do things, do you give talks like this online regularly or is, yeah?
Yes and no. It's seasonally.
Yes.
And so at different parts of the seasons I come in, and then when I'm really focusing guiding a journey, I'm less public. And
yes.
So I only do a couple of these public a couple of times a year. Yeah. Okay,
thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah. Cool. Well, if anyone does have any questions, you can just email me at learning@treeoftotems.com. And I would love to hear from you and see if anything else stirred within you. I would love to invite you guys to join us this summer. It's a 4-month journey of learning this etiquette and coming into a right relationship with place. I really can't tell you all that you're going to experience. Those unteachable learnings are profound. But I hope you say yes and journey with us. And if anything else, I'd just love to hear from you. So I'm an open book and I'm here to share. So please reach out. Cool. All right. Well, the way we like to end our Council of Fires is by doing a wolf howl or a raven call or a duck quack. So if you guys would like to unmute yourselves, we'll all do our howls. Just waiting for everyone. All right. Okay. Oh!
Quack, quack, quack.
Oh!
I love it. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Chat soon.
Thank you.
You too.